Hi, this is Dr. Juliana Morris, and welcome to Be Your Own Sexpert. Today is a really special podcast, and I'm very excited about it. I've brought together four men who I see as being very female positive and supportive of women in progressive and meaningful ways in their careers and in their personal lives. I've worked with a lot of men in my career as a therapist, a professor, and speaker, and I've worked with groups of men through sports and fraternities. And I've seen an incongruency with how the media portrays men in general and with what I've heard men say privately. And I saw that men are often underestimated and not given the space to visibly show and express supportive women in their lives and in our culture in many ways. And they aren't really taught how to do this too, but not in this group of men. These men are bringing it differently into the world. Another reason I thought having a panel like this in the podcast was important is because through my work, I've also seen that when a man is affirming to women, or to women in general, or to someone specifically, it can be really powerful and healing to a woman, even just through example or in her day-to-day life, and she doesn't even know him at all. So I scoured the internet and through my colleagues, and I found these four amazing men, and I'd like to introduce you to them. So first is Anthony Trucks. His career has shifted from the NFL to a successful author, speaker, and currently a life navigator. He teaches people how to design and build their ideal lives by teaching a process and a message that has carried him through his life called How to Trust Your Hustle. He's a divorced father of three, two boys and one girl, and is currently reconciling for the third time with his ex-wife. He comes to us from California. Next, we have Mike Watts. He combines an extraordinary ability to organize information and people with his true passion as a co-founder of the Freedom Family. Founded with his wife and business partner, Kate Northrup, the Freedom Family is a group of inspired entrepreneurs who pursue time freedom and vibrant health with their product partner, USANA Health Services. Mike has been married for 2 years and is a father to his 1-year-old daughter, Penelope, and he comes to us from Maine. We have Alejandra Ferradas. Alejandra is a former successful real estate agent and is now a higher self coach and business coach, helping people live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. He's a divorced single father of 2 children, one of which is a 15-year-old daughter. He was born and raised in Peru and now lives in California. And last, we have Brandon Duncan. Brandon is a single dad entrepreneur and ultra-endurance athlete. He owns a high-performance coaching company called Rare Breed and is passionate about discovering his greatest self through his work, play, and life, and teaches others how to do the same. He currently lives in Oregon, and his daughter is 6 years old. Hi, guys, and welcome to Be Your Own Sexpert.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hi,
Hello?
how are you?
Well, I'm so happy to have this time with you all. And I'm curious, tell me what you all thought when I first approached you to be a part of Be Your Own Sexpert and to talk about sex and sexuality.
I was open to it. I think since like 14, we're all becoming our own sexperts, right? Like, figured out. But no, I thought it was a cool thing for me. I talked to you previously. I enjoy being in awkward situations because it helps me grow as a human. So I was all open to it.
Brandon, what about you?
I agree with Anthony, and we had talked once before. The idea of sexuality in general right now between the masculine and the feminine and just all the changes in society and the workplace and everything is really a topic of fascination for me in my own personal life and also what I do with my clients. And so I'm always excited to talk about this because I think it's something that needs more attention right now, especially for men, and sharing that message of masculinity and how that connects to sexuality as well.
Awesome. What about you, Mike?
I agree with Brandon and Anthony as well. I've been around a lot of women that have talked a lot about this conversation, but I haven't been around a lot of men that had talked about this conversation. So it's been really cool to put that together. And when the panel came, I think it's a really good place to be able to do that.
Great. So what are we talking about when we say sexuality? What does that sexuality mean to you all?
For me, is who's going to go? Mike or?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Mike, please.
No, go ahead. You started.
Okay. Well, for me, is actually is the total of the combining the mind, the soul, and the body, and it's what you believe, what you feel, and how you respond to in general. That's what I feel sexuality is.
I think like sexuality is an overarching thing, and I don't. It's odd because I always ask, people always ask me some of the same questions, like, what do you deem sexuality to be? Or is someone sexy, or is it not sexy? And it's weird because I think we all have our own like gauging of that. What I find sexy wouldn't be sexy to somebody else, and then I think internalizing that to be sexuality overall, it's kind of a thing where I literally, it's one of the few times you'll find me speechless and I'd have fully explained my definition of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, like the conversation, so often we're talking about sex, but really it's something so much bigger and more whole of who we are as a person, but we don't use that word sexuality very often in our conversations.
Yeah, I kind of build off Anthony when you first asked the question. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, what's the dictionary definition? What, and then to build off that. But I would say for me, when I think of it, what initially came to me was the word confidence, that it's not necessarily, because there's a lot of, let's say, sexy people but you can tell they don't have the inner confidence that comes with it. So it's not the total package. And when I think of sexuality, it's like the inner, and then also just taking care of ourselves on the outside, like showering or something like that, can be the total combination of adding to sexuality.
Yeah, like how we show up in the world and how we connect with others. I agree with that. So I want
for me, I think it's, or just to share real quick, it's I don't think it has anything to do with sexiness. For me, I think that's a completely different, idea and belief around more attractiveness. And for me, sexuality is kind of more this energetic inner essence of who we are. It's more of the passion, the energy, the purpose within us that is expressed through our character, through our desires, through the way that we carry ourselves in the world. And kind of how you were saying with the confidence and some of these other traits, these energetic traits about us, that for me, sexuality is more of that. It again kind of connects back to, for men, that masculine element of sexuality being a masculine energy or a masculine core kind of part of you, and it's expressed through the way you live your life.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. I love it. And I think also what's interesting is that we do all have different concepts and views of what sexuality is, and which makes it even more important that we have discussions like this, so that we have some kind of commonality and common terminologies, so we know what we're even talking about when we're broaching the subject. So I want to ask you all, in growing up, who were your major female influences about learning what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman?
I don't know if I was put in foster care early, so my only, I guess, concepts for man and woman were just the literal people that were taking care of me, which were all different. So I had no consistency, no congruency. I never had a woman around to actually like raise me to be like a compassionate or caring human. So I think it took a long time for me to get to that point. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I'd love to hear you guys' perspectives on this.
I'm almost speechless on this one. I don't know if I really had a role model or an influence as a younger child, in that. I think it was more when I got older that started to be more of a potential influence from other places,
What about you, Alejandro?
It's odd.
In my case, growing up, it had to be my mother, as unconsciously just watching her over her demeanor, her behavior, and the way she interacted with other people. That laid the foundation. Then throughout life, I would say every single person that I dated, they served as a catapult, I would say, to continue to grow and absorb or perceive different traits, because everyone has something good to offer. So this has been an ongoing training, per se, that is continued to take place always.
Yeah, and mine was definitely my mom. Because my dad traveled so much when I was growing up that she was around basically 24/7. Now, that's created a lot of good things, and it's also a lot of challenges. But then the other aspect, like the internet, dial-up started when I hit, what is it? What's the teenage thing you hit that I can't remember?
Millennial? Puberty?
Yeah, like when I hit puberty, was like dial-up internet. So that led to porn and just, nudity online. And then we also used to get like Fredericks of Hollywood catalogs and Victoria's Secret delivered to our house. So I would say there's been a lot of habits or not habits, but training and programming from those type of items. So it wasn't actually a physical person. It was more these magazines.
And I was like this weird, like there's a stigmatic view around it too, and this is my stigmatic view. Is like you see those things, and that's supposed to be what a woman's supposed to be. And I'm almost as I'm listening, like Brandon said, didn't have a role model, and it doesn't sound like any of us really had like a man that showed us. For me, I'm like searching. I'm like internally, it might be that I just got frustrated with seeing what certain guys acted like and operated like, and I was like, I don't want to be that. And so I almost brought on what like the picture perfect guy is supposed to be, at least from what I saw or what I felt, which was, the way that a man would just support or take care of the family, or the way that he would have some sense of like masculinity. And like honestly, growing up, you want to be accepted by women. So what was that one thing or two things that guy did that made all the girls like him sometimes? So sometimes we shift to play into the role that would be more accepted by our society.
So
I was kind of like you, Mike. Mine wasn't an actual physical person until I got much older, and my father and my mother played a big role at that point. But it wasn't until probably high school that connection from influence started to actually happen. And previous to that, it was magazines, it was TV, it was posters of Cindy Crawford or whatever, Sports Illustrated model at the time was plastered all over the place. And so it was almost a distorted view and a distorted influence until I got a little bit older. And as you were saying, Anthony, then seeing what a man, what I thought a man should be, and more adopting those types of patterns and beliefs and habits and things like that.
So what were pivotal things that were happening for you in learning about sexuality in teenage life and young adulthood when you started dating and coming to your own and your own as a sexual man?
Losing my virginity. That was a unique one. Because you're like, oh my gosh, look what just happened. And I think then you start figuring out like it's a whole different like game. I guess as a game is for me. It's like I wasn't really worried about anything, but like how much more can this happen, and trying to figure that out. And then I had these internal like demons that it's like this as much as it feels right, like physically, mentally, it didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I was treating women right. I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing, because I think we know what's right and wrong. But at the same time, you just run amok sometimes. You look back and like, dang, I wish I hadn't done that. But then at the same time, am I who I am? And do I have the same respect I do now if I didn't do that? It's kind of a weird battle I fight internally all the time.
Alejandro, what about you?
Well, I can say that I've had the somewhat the same feeling as Anthony when it came to trying to not quite sure that was the right move, right, and the right attitude of how to actually, if I was treating a woman the right way. And but just as you, the more experience you have and more you interact with people in general, you start, and the more you get to know yourself better, then you start having less doubts about, and you don't analyze as much, right, because you're more in tune with your inner being. So that really, I think, it started changing. I mean, I was a late bloomer. I lost my virginity at the age of 20, and so for me, it started changing late. I would say my late 20s. When I actually was secure enough, and after being told so many great things about me that I, at the moment didn't even believe to be true of someone, right? And then it just comes with the feeling as you interact with people. I would say, and the more you get to know yourself, is the better off you're going to be, and the less doubt you're going to have. It's just going to flow naturally, because every person is different. Every interaction is different. Everyone has something good to offer and something that we can learn from. So I don't think that the learning process ever stops in that case.
What was the question again? I completely was like paying attention to you guys, what you were saying, and I have no idea what the question was.
Yeah, so I was asking about like what things were you learning, what was pivotal to you when you were a teenager and a young adult, and it related to sexuality and you becoming very aware of yourself as a sexual man.
I guess the biggest thing for me was like, and still like the image that came to mind as you're asking the question is like a roller coaster. It's like sometimes I go up and sometimes I go down, and then there's circles and loops, but it's definitely been a journey along those lines of how to interact with other women and how to talk with, even interact with guys around about women to a certain degree. But just that. And I was late, as Alejandro said. I think I was 20 years old when I lost my virginity, because I tried in high school and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it was really interesting. But yeah, so that whole like confidence, and then how that has affected my self-confidence based off of kind of like the more maturity that I'm coming along versus like trying to play the game of, what's the women going to be this weekend type of a mentality, where kind of a little bit like what college was. So there's always been this journey along to create the mutual respect across both, for me, with like interaction with women along the way. So in like that changed the definition of like, I would say in college, like sexuality was all about like how hot you were, or like what that weekend's going to look like, what, how many girls or whatever is going to take place, versus it's a much different outlook today than it was then growing up during there. Cause it did change from, as was said earlier, about like these swimsuit models on your walls. And that's what the expectation is supposed to be versus, they're actually like, a woman is actually like a person. And so to be treated along those lines and realize like, what my mom thought as I was growing up isn't necessarily what needs to be true to me. Like, for example, like today, right? So that's going to take place because I was really influenced a lot by on what not to do when I get married. That was a lot. I remember that phrase was like so much in our house. Like, don't do this to your wife when you get married. Like my dad used to like buy her appliances for her birthday. And so like some women might be into the appliances on the birthday. Like my mom was into like a washer. And so she would always be like, don't get your wife a washer on her birthday. So I'm like, okay, stuff like that. So
that's a really good point. About so much we are taught what not to do instead of giving the tools of what works and the shoulds of the positive part of things. Good point.
Exactly.
Brandon, did you have anything to add to that, or?
I agree, and very similar to all the guys that shared. For me, I mean, quite honestly, I was somewhat of a selfish asshole, younger. My needs were that I was kind of projecting onto women were really a reflection of kind of my insecurities within me and what I was searching for inside. I didn't really love myself, and I had a lot of insecurities and stuff going on within me, and so I would search to fulfill that by having acceptance and validation through women, so it was just this constant like chasing. And although deep down inside, I wanted this belief of like that really healthy relationship and, honoring a woman and having something that you could really be proud of. On the surface, it was just about how sexy she was or how hot she was or, all these other kind of, just things that didn't really serve the longevity of a healthy relationship, at least on the front end of something. And it wasn't until I got much older, and kind of went down my own journey of away from relationships and going through some dark periods of time to find out how to really treat a woman by really treating myself a certain way. So relationships, later in my 20s were radically different than relationships, in high school and kind of early 20s, college and that sort of thing.
So let's talk about the current time. Like how do you all want to show up to the women in your lives?
I'd like to show up as me and have no complaints. That'd be nice. But it doesn't work that way.
Don't we all want that? Yes.
I realized, and I live by this, you have to give to get. It's like the most simplistic I can look at it. And sometimes you give like willingly, and sometimes you give against the will. But it's the only way you're going to get what you want. Which if I want as a man, I know that Anthony likes physical touch and words of affirmation are like my big love languages, and I want to have respect and be appreciated. But there's certain things that my opposite also wants, and it may not be what I can easily give or care to give. And for me, I guess the way that I want to show up is how they need me to, because that's how I'm going to get my needs met. And that's how I'm going to keep what I think some people take for granted eventually, because you get to that point of almost lazy and consistency of like, oh, they'll always be there. I can kind of do what I want. And the next you know, you're just, they're not doing for you, so you're not doing for them. And then everything that's your foundation is uprooted. So for me, I just want to not in a sense lose myself by giving all of myself, but I want to make sure I'm giving in a way that fulfills me, so I actually then in time want to give the way they need me to.
Alejandro,
I like that.
Brandon, please, sorry. Yeah.
Or else, yeah, go ahead, Alejandro.
No, you go, please.
I vibe with that, Anthony. And for me, it's even now become almost it's who am I in relationship to my partner, right? It's not so much of like, what can I capture from her or what can I have from this person and what they're doing or what they're giving. It's more, who do I have to show up as, like the better version of myself in relationship to that person to give more love and to give more of the things that I ultimately desire to receive as well. But for me, it's almost of it's an opportunity, because without any kind of relationship, we can't really know our own self, right? Mm-hmm. Like we have to have that relationship to really know ourself as well, because it's who we are in a relationship. And so for me, that partnership, especially when we start talking about intimacy, because everyone's different, that love language and the way people are not just sexually turned on, but in any type of capacity, it really, for me, becomes an issue of who do I have to be, and who do I have to show up as in this relationship to give and receive the things that ultimately serve me at the highest level. And that's been a crazy and very odd journey the last couple of years, because it's something I never really thought that I would even have this mindset around relationships, so it's been different, and it's been something that for me didn't happen until I became a father to a little girl. And that just radically changed my entire paradigm when it comes to relationships.
We are in it. Like, I mean, Kate and I are like going through massive transformation right now. And the reality is, I think I'm going through the massive transformation and she's kind of going along for the ride, because it's like what Anthony talked about, where it's like to just build off what he shared, is like for me to fully show up. And one of to give and what did you say, to give and get? You have to give to get, right? And I would say when I really look back over the last, since Kate and I have been together for 5 years now, 6 years now. And so I just look back on that and just say there was so much. I always felt like I was giving way more than was necessary, or I always felt this desire to over deliver. And I think a lot of it came, and I know a lot of it came from the programming that I just shared with my mom. Was like, don't do this. So, okay, I'm not going to, let's say I'm not going to pick up the chair. Let's just build a chair, relocate the chair. Let's put it where it needs to go. And it's actually lost in that process, has lost a little piece of myself along the way. And so now we've been doing a lot of work together where it's just, okay, what's the right thing to do? And then our business and the way our business has been run has also been a very large support to Kate as the front woman. I've been running all operations and the behind the scenes and all that stuff. So it's like the front woman has been her. And I really, over the last, and we figured this out like a week ago, and it just came down more and more, was like, this isn't right or fulfilling my bucket that's like making me happy. Because I always looked at like, I have myself and then I have Kate. So for those of you listening audio, I have like my right and left hand up in the air. But like there's a circle, it's like a Venn diagram type thing. So like Mike's on the left, Kate's on the right, and in the circle where they intersect would be like our relationship piece. And it's almost where I focused more on just making sure our relationship's good and not taking care of myself during this process. And that's caused a little bit of disconnect, but it's not, and it's more disconnect within myself. So I think it's a really interesting, it's a great question. I'm really in the mix of all of that right now. So, but yeah, I think it's 100% what Anthony said about like, just make sure we're giving to get a little bit, but then also don't for me was like not overgiving. Like what I'm bringing to the table is perfect, but I'm not giving it back to myself almost. And that's what is, there's a lot of transition happening on that end right now.
That's powerful. Alejandro?
Excellent. Well, first of all, you guys are filled with wisdom, and I appreciate listening to you guys. Well, in my case, I've learned the hard way as where I realized that I needed to change my strategy as of how I interacted with women, and especially pay attention to my expectations. And as Brandon pointed out, that his life changed, his views changed when he had his little girl. The same thing happened to me. And just not too long ago, a couple of years ago, Isabella actually taught me that I needed to change my ways of approaching her and to let her, be and trust her, her inner wisdom, even though she was only 13 at the time. And but then that was one biggest step. And then with relationships, I learned that I definitely need to listen to how I feel towards when it comes to compromising, right? Because you're always going to have to compromise. It's never going to be 1, 2, 3, and the other person is going to match every requirement you have written, right, on your wish list. So it's just make sure that you remove the expectations from your list and allow for things to flow naturally, where there's no we're not. I was demanding, and I wasn't aware of that, asking for feelings that I needed at the moment. So it was all about me. The main focus was me. What is it that I needed, that I wanted, in order to feel good, right? But then I realized that if I go that route, it will be probably not ever going to see the light at the end of the tunnel, because one way or another, the other person is going to disappoint you or not fulfilled all of your expectations. So I learned that as long as it feels good interacting with that person, and there's it's a two-way street, and not paying attention of who gives more, who gives less, but the feeling is good at the end. You feel joy by being together, by interacting. I think that's the bottom line, and just dwell on it. That's my take.
So you all, two of you brought up about having a daughter and how that's influenced you. And it's also one of the reasons why I picked you for, is that each of you have a daughter. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on what changed in you when you became a father of a girl.
A lot. I think you don't have a choice. It just has to change, first off, because you see it in this thing that you, and maybe this is my thought. I'm like, damn it, some little boy someday is going to be around her and he's going to be me. And I'm like, damn, like I got to take care of making sure it doesn't happen. But at the same time, she, to this day, teaches me like a lot of patience, like patience that I don't want to have to learn, but I have to learn. And I find that it actually helps me. I think it's helping me operate better with her mom. And I think it's also helped me operate better with the world, like even other guys I talk to. And in a weird way I say it, it's hard to clearly see that. But for example, like she is a person who she won't freak out and cry. She'll visibly show me that she's hurt. And I think that like the way that I then perceive at that moment is like my guy instinct wants to say, just suck it up. You're okay, right? But then that's not the way to handle it with her. And so I'm understanding that there's that saying is treat everyone the same by treating everyone different. And so I have to treat her differently. But when I see that, like I can visually see it, I now operate different. So with my buddies, when I see them operate with that same, like you can see the pain on their face, they're not going to say anything. My guy friends, I'm able to actually communicate with them a little bit differently and talk to where they're at now. And actually I find that it gets us closer. So like my daughter, who's 7, is helping me with my grown man relationships in a weird way. But I think that that it's fun. I think because I'm open to it, which I wasn't always before, because I'm open to it, I get to experience emotions that most people never get to experience, which is the fact that you can get better and you're not stuck in this place having to fight against this monster of like, how do I figure this out? How do I talk to people? And so, yeah, my 7-year-olds helped me as a grown man easily.
Brandon, what about you?
My daughter quite literally saved my life. And I share a lot pretty publicly about my past and my personal life. And I had a drug addiction to prescription pain pills while her mom was pregnant. I just opened up a new restaurant back in my hometown in Alabama, and going through a lot of changes professionally and personally, and had some injuries and had pain pills prescribed for a long period of time. Ended up becoming addicted to them, and there were even before this years of other painful emotional experiences. My little brother died on my birthday 13 years ago, and all these things that as a man I never dealt with, right? Because we're told to be stoic and not show our emotions, and so this stuff just started to compound and to build. And so when this drug addiction hit, same thing. I thought that I should put that shield on, not tell anybody that I'm going through this, and just fight it. And that backfired big time. And so when she was born, it was kind of that injection of light, into this really dark period of my time, that although I knew that I had to make these changes, I didn't have the connection to something, outside of me that really would drive me to make the changes until she was born. So, quite literally, she saved my life at that point when she was born. And then, as Anthony was talking about, the lessons that a child, but especially a daughter, especially the masculine men and guys like us, it is a game changer. And when you can become, or I should say from my experience, when I became hyper present to her and to our time together, and to understanding how she's developing at a young age, at 1 and 2 and 3, and ages that a lot of people aren't that aware of. They just look at, a toddler or a baby, but really paying attention to kind of these developmental, experiences that she's going through. It continues. Even now she just turned 6, and it's almost a daily process of me like having these aha moments of lessons and opportunities to learn that I then apply to my own life. And same thing, like talking to guys or talking to other men, it's given me opportunities, whether it's through my personal life or my professional life, to really make a bigger impact for other men, because my daughter is here giving me these lessons that I can now go and share in a way that, I never saw stuff this way previously. So, getting back to it, she quite literally saved my life. She quite literally has, given me an opportunity to reconnect to my purpose. I don't like to say that she is my purpose, because I believe that my purpose is much deeper than that. They're connected. But she gave me that vision, to see it all in a really beautiful way.
Mike?
Yeah, I love that. The very first thought that came to mind was, when you asked that question, was just like nothing. And it was really, and then I thought, as these guys have been talking, I thought about it, where I was like really ready to be a dad, and I knew I was going to have a daughter. It was just that thing where I was really excited about that. And there wasn't, but over time, so she just turned a year, and she's in the phase between crawling and walking. So we're like in that phase where she's trying to squat everywhere. So I'm watching her, how she moves. And I just started, it's how all applies, but like I just started CrossFit like 2 months ago, and really enjoying it, and noticing that I can't move like my daughter. So like when she squats, she's like wide stance, and I'm just like, okay, I got to spread my legs out more, feet. So it's just been an interesting movement, just watching her move, and realize like what I should be able to do, but I'm not able to because of years of, fascia buildup and et cetera. And then also how I've had to kind of let go of the control, or just kind of give in to the present moment instead of trying to control everything. So about a month ago, Kate left for the first time for 3 days. And so it was the longest period of time I've just been with Penelope. And we were home, and I remember on 2 of the days she was on daycare for half the day, and then I would take her that evening. But I remember on that Saturday, I was like, I got to get to this work or do this or do this. And I just sat there and I was like, okay, what if I just give in to let her kind of dictate the day of what we're going to end up doing via nap times, etc. And it was just one of the best days that we actually had together. And it was just the two of us. So we got to connect on a different level versus mom being around. And it was really cool just to be like, oh, this is what they mean when you're like in the present moment. And to like stop everything else and like clear the mind space and kind of let Penelope kind of dictate what we're doing. So this moment we're crawling over here, the next moment we're like going outside, and et cetera. So that's been a big learning experience for the past year. And it's just created a different, because I didn't have that. My buddies had I had some friends that had babies at the same time I did, and they had this provider instinct that like initially kicked in immediately as soon as their baby was born. They were just like, we have to work, we have to provide, we have to make money and I didn't have that. And I think and I really didn't have it for 9 months. And I would say it's kicking in more now, about 13 months. And a lot of that, I think, was the preparation leading up to Penelope being born, because we already had kind of the business squared away financially. There was money coming in. So it wasn't a big emergency for us because the business was providing for both of us, for Kate and I, so we could take some time off. But I was really excited. And from the very beginning, when she came into this world, my wife had a little bit of like traumatic for the first couple of days. It was a like whole like big thing happened. So it was just right from the beginning. I had to basically take care of Penelope, and Kate had to like take 3 days to like, oh, I'm officially a mom now, I got to do my thing. And yeah, it was really great. And it was almost easier to take care of the baby than it was to like have Kate's emotions. So that was one thing I noticed in the first week, where I was like, dude, I'll take care of this baby all day long, but Kate, you gotta like get some help in here. But so it's just really taking it back to the present moment. And then how I said the last thing would be just, how do I want to live my life as a father to, as she gets older and she still is, looking up to me as like her dad, like what is the type of person that I want to represent, or that I feel that I want to represent in her life. Mm-hmm. So really, I've done a lot of work on myself in the last 7 years. So I feel like I'm at that point to continually grow and be a good example. But yeah, I've definitely thought about that. Who for me to be in her life.
Well, I have about 1,000 other questions to ask you all, but I'm looking at our time, and I want to get to a couple questions that some of my people sent me to ask you all. So I'm going to rapid fire it and just kind of answer what comes to mind, and they're more specific about some sex and your views on things. So a viewer asked me, what do you think the deal is of men liking porn so much? And there obviously is an assumption that men like porn, but that was the question. What's the deal with men and porn?
I believe it's something that is more about sedation, and it's more about distraction. It's more about boredom. It's more about these other elements of men not being men. And looking, for the quick drink, the quick, porn, the quick, jerk off, the quick, whatever it may be, to distract them from the shit and the chaos that they're not dealing with properly in their day-to-day life. And porn, because of access now, because of technology, that little square device in our phone is a massive computer that can pretty much do anything, so the ease of access now is completely different. And so that's my personal thought, is it's more of a sedation that becomes a habitual thing because the access point is so easy, to be able to do it. I mean, a guy at work can be stressed out and go to the bathroom on his iPhone and pull up Pornhub and jerk off in 5 minutes and come back to work and be relieved, from this stress or this chaos that he's experiencing. And so that's my thoughts on it. It's porn is attractive now because it's a way to escape reality.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Escape was the first word, and then vulnerability, where we're escaping because we're not talking about, like what Brandon just shared, like I'm upset with something at work. So instead of talking to the people I need to talk to or processing it myself, let me go escape in the bathroom and deal with it there. But then you come back and it's still, so whether it's porn or alcohol or sports or, there's so many different ways to people, like video games that escape. But yeah.
Anthony or Alejandro, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't want to reiterate the same thing they're saying, but I think I agree with that concept. It is something where it's a quick fix. It's something you can just hop onto. But then I think if you look at guys who are in relationships, I realize that it becomes detrimental. I've never been a guy that really watched porn. It's never my thing. But I've had deep conversations with women who've been with men who are big on porn, and guys, like some of my friends who have collections. And so conceptually, I kind of look at it like it's like a diet pill. And most of these guys that are in relationships, they want to have that great sex with their partner and have connection, and it's kind of like a diet pill in a sense of like, get that quick fix, right? You get the quick fix, but then what happens is later on, something goes wrong and you gain weight again, or like you can't sustain that, and it's like you end up feeling crappy at the end. And the way it shows up with guys is, and my buddies are like, dude, I have a horrible sex life with my girl. I'm like, well, do you are you big on porn? He's like, yeah, I have to get one, rub one out every day. And I'm like, well, because you have nothing left in the tank for her when it comes to it, like you're not passionate, you're not there. And so now, like, you literally you had your quick fix. And so what happens is you had your quick fix. Now you have a prolonged level of pain because now the two of you have no connection intimately, and then she gets mad at you, and then there's arguments, and now you have all this other negativity in your life, non-sexual, but the energy is being directed that way because you're having the quick fix. So I agree, it becomes something where it's quick, it can satiate you fast, but at the end it's not even, like, non-religiously, it's not always the best thing for you because it leaves you in a place where you kind of had that little box tick. And for men, like, there's actual studies that show when you have that box tick, like women, they actually can fire up and you kind of get to more energy. Guys, we just don't go to sleep. So it's different. And so I think guys are actually hurting themselves by helping themselves. That makes sense.
Right. Yes.
Do you want to say anything, Alejandro, or no?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I totally agree with them, and I see it as an addiction, right? As an escape, as escaping from your reality, right? From whatever it is that you're lacking at the moment, and like with any drug or any addiction, and it's never been my thing, but I've watched it a couple of times a few years ago, as of being curious about what it was all about. And yeah, you could, pick up some tricks here and there, watching, but it's never thought about. It never comes to mind, and I just see it as I'd rather, instead of watching, I'd rather be fully present with who I'm with, right, and then just explore the other person, and just allow it to flow as whatever you guys feel, how to follow the rhythm, right? Like dancing tango per se. And so it's never been my thing. But
what do you all think about women watching porn?
My first thought is it's sexy, which I don't know why. I have no idea why. Because here's the thing too, as a guy, let's be honest, like I like, and I'm not sure everybody's like this, it's just me, like I like that whole concept. We had talked about this too, Juliana, is like, you want to lay in the street but a freak in the sheets. Like, you want something that can just kind of like let you explore and have your desires met, because then you have a closer bond. And so I wouldn't want my woman to be obviously addicted to porn. It wouldn't be something I wanted to do. But I think what Alejandro said was he learned some new tricks. Like, that's so at that. But at the same time, I know women that I've met that have been big into porn, and I almost feel like they're overly sexual to where they almost make me uncomfortable. Like, they're almost like a dude in a female's body, because like, guys will have those locker room conversations, but it's just like that. But I think sometimes women, when they're exposed to it heavily, they're almost over sexualized. So it's more sexuality being just exuded through them. So for me, it's just me personally. So I don't know. I don't know if I like it or don't like it. I think in the moments, the concept of it is kind of like, that'd be interesting. But the women I know have done it, they've at some point become annoying to me, and I can't be around them too long. And I probably wouldn't want my lady doing that, because she'd be like, how come we're not like this guy? And how come we can't do it? So I don't know.
Or it's almost like the women, they're being fake, like it's an act. I don't really I don't have a problem with guys watching porn or women watching porn, but it's when the element where it's like going to a movie, right? When I go sit in a movie in a theater and I see Tom Cruise or somebody on the screen, I'm not going to just walk out and expect every man I meet on the street is going to be Tom Cruise. It's going to be jumping over cars and over buildings. But I think a lot of times, because it's like sex and it's a more intimate, where we go and we watch porn, and then all of a sudden, if I don't perform the same way a porn star does on TV, then now that's super vulnerable to open up to like their partner and be like, well, I'm scared. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what to, like, how to please you, to ask somebody, you know, give and receive. That it's a challenging thing. So I think if it starts to, I think it's an educational purposes. Like, there can be a lot of benefit from it, you know, just learning new tricks of the trade. But it's when that starts to overtake our life, just like having a beer at night instead of having one beer, now it turns into 7 beers, where that's controlling the way we're feeling. It's the getting that quick fix. So I think that can be an issue regarding for men and women. But yeah, I mean, I think it's if they like it, but some people don't. So.
I've got 2 more. Sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
I was just saying, I agree with you guys. I think that there's definitely an element that it's sexy to know that a woman is turned on by, you know, by pornography or by watching sex, you know, I mean, but here's the thing that I really believe personally is that we all connect to sex. Every man, every woman on this planet has an innate desire about sex. We think about it, we perform it, we want it, we desire it. We question our ability of it, right? So like to then go out and watch porn stars and people that are staged, fabricated, over-exaggerated in a lot of ways to go and then perform not sex, but a type of sex that is not typically found on a normal basis in an average healthy relationship. It gives this perception that all of a sudden skews the entire playing field, whether that's a man or a woman. Now, we see the epidemic of it more with men typically, but just like Anthony said, I mean, if a woman watches porn periodically, cool. If a man watches it periodically, cool. If you guys watch it together in a relationship, that's cool too. It kind of spices up the relationship and the sex life. But to have this thing where you're constantly engaging in it and then, you know, over fabricating your own presence in the bedroom from this and placing expectations on your partner or others from this, I think that it's asking for trouble at that point.
Is there like a like button on his screen I can click somewhere?
So, similar but different. When you have lived with a woman, how do you all, have you done this in a positive way or a negative way? How have you dealt with masturbating, either for yourself or for your partner? How do you get the time in and communicate about it?
First of all, I think masturbation is incredibly healthy, but I think that it can also be incredibly unhealthy. Same thing about porn. Masturbating to release, which that's typically what a man is doing, literally, is releasing the act of sex. And the act of masturbation can be a healthy, you know, personal act, or it can be the same thing as going and having a drink, taking a pill, going in and watching porn or anything else. It could be a way of escaping. And so myself and my clients will do this all the time. We'll do a 30-day no masturbation challenge. So you don't look at any type of perverted, not just pornography, but like even the models on Instagram or all these different places we're being stimulated, right, with sex. Go 30 days, go 60 days without masturbating, without stimulating your brain with, you know, manipulated imagery or videography or pornography or whatever it may be. And then engage in the intimacy of your relationship, and it's a game changer. You know, so masturbation can be incredibly healthy to tune you into your body and who you are and your sexuality. But same thing with all of it. It has to be balanced. And if you find that you're using it to escape, give yourself a challenge and go 30 days and don't masturbate. And watch what happens about a week and a half, 2 weeks into it, depending on, you know, how heavy or frequently you masturbate. You'll start to notice like this new energy, this new like hyperactiveness that comes up because you're not used to that. Because typically, and again, as a man, you're releasing it. right? You're releasing this every so often, however often you do it. And so it literally gives you new energy, and it's wild to do this challenge.
I've never done it like that, but I can definitely, like, when I was probably like the worst time in my relationship intimately, like emotionally, was when I was masturbating like daily. And then when I stopped, this was years ago, but like I realized afterwards, like when I just wouldn't, I wanted her more. And because she felt wanted, she felt better. And because she felt better, like the relationship was better. Because I think at the end of the day, it's all tied. Obviously, it is all tied together. Sexuality, emotional, it's all there. But I was like he said, when you release it out, then there's no draw for it. It's like that. They call it marginal utility. Like the first hamburger's great, but the second one, not so great. The 10th hamburger, I don't want it. So as a guy, it's like when you're diminishing that marginal utility like that, you literally don't have much of a desire for it as immediately. Most men, I'm saying most men, obviously.
Mike and Alejandra, what do you think about giving space or communicating to the women in your life that you support them in masturbating?
I do that, and I think it's a great thing. Like we've been on this crazy journey of all this, but we've gone to like, I mean, even before I met Kate, she went to different workshops where it was all women workshops. They talked about these type of things. We've went to workshops as well where we talk about individual masturbation, and then, and I think Anthony was talking about, or Brandon was talking about, just like being comfortable with your body and understanding that aspect as well. So the workshops have been in there. Like we're really open with each other, and if like we need to take our own space or do our own thing, and it's where the one thing that we've always been very upfront about is that if it, as Anthony just shared, like if it's all of a sudden I start noticing that this is happening constantly, or the desires to go do this constantly, I'm usually avoiding something else in our relationship or in our life. So we just make sure that we're paying attention to those things as talking about masturbation. It's definitely something that Kate and I have had a lot of discussions about.
So I have one more question from the followers, and then I've got a last question for you all from me. So when you're either with somebody that you've just met, or you're in a committed relationship, and you're wanting to communicate that you want something different sexually, like when you're in the middle of sexual activity, you want something different, or you don't like what they're doing, or you want to add something, what are your tips on how to communicate to your partner about that? Meaning from a woman to the man, what would give the tips of how you would want to receive that?
Oh, that's like a whole different conversation.
That's a little tougher.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify.
You mean from like the woman telling us?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think direct honesty.
Yes.
Like just giving it. Yeah. I mean, because again, like, and I don't care who you are, what kind of man you are, at some point in time, you question your sexual abilities, right? Like you question a lot of different things about sex. And it's not so much a lack of confidence issue. I mean, it may be at times, but to have feedback, to have direction, to have a deeper understanding of what your partner really desires, right? And what fulfills her needs and her fantasies and all of that is only going to make that whole process of intimacy healthier and get to that point faster. And I mean, this goes back to the masturbation thing a little bit. A lot of women, the statistic is much higher than men, aren't that comfortable with their body. And a lot of them don't have an orgasm during traditional sex as well. And, so to be able to understand as a man what really makes a woman comfortable, because we know when a woman's comfortable, she truly opens herself literally to us, right? And it's that trust element that exists there that then we as men can penetrate her world, right? Like literally all parts of her world, emotionally, sexually, physically, intellectually, everything. And that can only happen with honesty. And so it has to be that very direct honesty. And if it's in the moment of the bedroom, women know how to be sexy. Like let's face it, bringing that level of like passion in the moment to just simply say what you want, like tell us as men, like do this. This is what I love. This is what I want you to do right now. And it'll make our day.
Yeah. I was going to say some of the same thing. And the cool part is whenever a woman like asks you, it lets you know that she wants it from you. Like that's the cool thing. Like if she wants, like one girl asked me to pee on her leg in the shower. I was like, yeah, like all right. Like she wanted. It was cool because it's odd. It's not even that odd, but it's like okay, it's she wanted me to do it, right? Which means that she was digging me. And I think it's for me, if she never spoke up or never said anything, I would always question, like, am I doing this right? Like, is it all right? So it's like you get this kind of like, oh, yeah, we're good. She asked me to do that. And some guys take it as a buddy of mine had a conversation about things like, why would you pee in her leg? It's disgusting. It's like, honestly, at the end of the day, because she wanted it. And if I said no or I came back in a negative way, she'd never ask me again. And over time, would wonder, why is her sex life not that great? And I'm not saying that you should, but it's like, at the end of the day, you don't condemn somebody, and I want her to ask me those things. If anybody in the world, if she's my partner, I want her to ask me before she asks some other guy. So yeah, if she's asking me, I'm fully okay with it. So direct is the best way. Again, that's just, I'm better with direct. I'm sure some men also probably have those issues where they're probably dealing with self-consciousness or not feeling comfortable. So I think a woman also would want to make sure she understands the person she's talking to, and the response may not be because of her, but also because of that person sometimes. So. But again, I think direct is always the best. The hard conversation is the one that actually get the most progress in any walk of life.
Right. I agree. And like they say, the deeper penetration or the deepest penetration is the one of the mind, right? So when there is a good communication has been established and you're not taking things personal, and you're open to receive their suggestions and because you want to offer the best you can to at the end is a win-win situation, right? I think that is the best way to go about it, you know.
Mike, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm still peeing on the leg. That was amazing. It was like I've never had a woman ask me to pee on her. That was great. Anyway,
First for me too.
Yeah, that would definitely like throw you off for a second. I think I just think back to partners that I've had, and a lot of times like it's discussions even before we start having sexual activity. Is just like, are you open to suggestions, or there's like a conversation. Now that's not going to happen all the time, but 100%, I think it works great with directness towards, for most men that I know, operate really well with direct instructions, like direct. And we're taking this parenting class, and kids work great with direct instructions. So I thought that was really interesting, to just learn that as we're working with our children. But it is I think it's great. Like anything that's ever worked really well in the bedroom, that not taking it personally or judging myself about something has always been very direct. Because I like this. And I mean, most guys and most women will want to please their partner on both ends. So it's going to be reciprocated. And I think more open communication is better than, not being open.
Yeah, I think if a girl said something to me, it's like, this is how you do it. I'm like, no, it's how I'm going to do it. Like, I don't think that would probably take place. I might listen to her.
So I want to ask you all one last question. Let's say in 20 years, I have each of your daughters in whatever the version in 20 years of a podcast is. And I pose a question to all four of them. What is the greatest gift that your dad gave to you and to the world in who you are as a woman and in the world of women in general? What would you want her to say about you?
I would say... Go ahead, Anthony. Okay, I will say that I allowed her to be her. He allowed me to be me, and trusted that I will allow me to trust my own wisdom per se. Yes, and encourage her to follow her inner voice and to encourage her to increase her self-confidence, self-respect, and self-love.
Beautiful. Mike?
I mean, the main reason I it's really what attracted me to Kate, which it's the first thing that came to my mind, was just her total self-confidence in the way she carries herself and the way she interacts and her ideas. And I find that, and I did not get that as a kid, because we've talked a lot about our upbringings and how we want to parent Penelope, but hands down would be just, it's like, I don't know what the correct, or what would that be, but yeah, it's like I really want her to know that everything that she has here, this physical specimen that she is on this earth, is like, it's enough. Like all this fancy technology and these apps and and all that stuff, it's not necessary to do what she wants to do, where she can just handle that herself. So I guess that would be self-confidence.
Great. Brandon? Oh, sorry, Anthony?
Not what? Oh, I'll do it. I think at the end of the day, I want. You ever get to that point where somebody asks you, like, "How do you feel about this?" You're like, "Man, I just can't put it into words." Like when that is a statement somebody makes, I want her to feel like the sense of confidence, the sense of self. I want her to like be so like sound in her being that she literally is like, "Man, I can't even express it. I just feel great." Like that's just where I have that, and I don't know what words put that in place, but. I mean, that's it, because I think that at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to say that my dad loved me and supported me to be who I wanted to be when I wanted to be that person, because we change, she'll shift, she'll adjust, and I don't want her to think like, oh, my dad didn't love me when I was this person, but he loves me as this person. I want her to know that she's loved at all times, and she'll adjust and change and totally like be that solid person. And I also want her to, at some point later on in life, when something happens that I was out of the picture, she's grown up, I want her to be able to say this simple statement: my dad taught me better than that. That's it. And it's not to say that I taught her some lesson or rule that she has to uphold, but when she says it in that manner, it's saying that she was open to the teaching and she accepts it as something that she likes and says, you know, my dad taught me better than that. And that's it. I don't care what it's for, how it operates. But if that's what she can at least say, then it shows that I held a place in her life. One, she respected me too, and that something I said actually benefited her. But in order for it to even be something that's good, I'm still continuing to grow as a father. So over the years, those things that happen to teach her, we're going to shift, grow, and change along the same path.
Beautiful. Brandon?
I second what all the guys said. I mean, it's all things that I truly believe in my heart, when you ask this question. It's a tough question because you think about who this person's going to be when they're older. And when my daughter was about a year and a half, I started an email account for her. And I send her letters, videos, pictures, and stuff all the time, birthdays, holidays, and then just if I'm thinking about her. And I bring that up because it's very relevant to when I'm typing these emails to her over these last few years. Sometimes I'm speaking to the age that she is at that present moment. Like if she's 4, I'm speaking in my mind to this 4-year-old. And then other times I'm thinking, well, I don't know when I'm going to give her the password to this. At first I thought maybe when she graduates high school. Now people are telling me to wait even longer till like she has her first child or so there's this kind of weird psychological element in here of like, well, who am I speaking to? So to try to stretch this out 20 years and think about the woman she's going to be, I think the most important thing to me is that she loves herself first and foremost, that she has the inner self-worth and the inner happiness to truly be able to do and make it through anything that life is going to throw her way. That she trusts herself, to make the choices and decisions that are most going to serve her, and that her and I just have a relationship that has evolved, from father, daughter to friends and continue to deepen and strengthen in such a way that she knows I'll always be here for her. She knows that she will always have a home here with her father, and that we have a, deep trust, a deep bond, and a deep love that just continues to expand, as her life continues to unfold.
Wow, I'm kind of blown away by y'all's answers. That's really it's really beautiful. I said an hour ago that I had 4 amazing men and in this panel, and you all have proven that. In your answers, I thank you so much for your thoughts and your vulnerability and sharing your opinions on these topics. Thank you for being men who are willing to talk about these things that we don't talk about very often. And I thank you for being men who are teaching other men how to be positive for women, for being men who are raising your daughters to be happy women with who they are. And thanks for adding to the positive sexual culture out there. I'm grateful, and I know the listeners are too. Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you guys. It was a pleasure meeting you guys and having this opportunity to connect with you guys as well.
Yeah,
It's
man.
great
Enjoy
meeting
it.
you.
Cool.
Thank you. Nice meeting you guys.
And thank you for listening to Be Your Own Sexpert.